He is here.
So Neoplatonism is kind of like the grand unified field theory. That's what physicists are after. But it's the grand unified field theory of ancient philosophy and ancient spirituality.
I'm going on an adventure!
It's a culmination, it's a synoptic integration. And it's a synoptic integration of at least three main philosophical traditions.
I need air.
Let me just list them and briefly introduce you to them, and then I'll come back and show you how Plotinus weaves them together to give us Neoplatonism. The first is this Platonic tradition. That's why it's called Neoplatonism. Plotinus would not have called himself a Neoplatonist.
Where on this good earth did those foul creatures come from?
That's our label for him. He just thought himself in the tradition of Plato and Pythagoras. But there's a spirituality that he draws from that Platonic tradition. Now, one of the symptoms of the meaning crisis is people's pervasive self-description of themselves as spiritual but not religious, which doesn't mean very much at all.
You must be careful.
It sounds important, but when you ask them, do you believe in spirits? Well, no. Then what do you mean by spirituality?
I do not know.
Well, I mean, and then, bleh. Okay, I'm going to try and specify something here. I'm going to talk about a conforming of oneself to reality in order to cultivate wisdom and meaning. And by meaning, I don't mean semantic meaning, I mean meaning in life.
It is time for you to know what really happened.
I mean that thing that you can point to that makes life worth living in the face of human frailty, foolishness, suffering, and its ultimate fatality.
I've got parasites as big as my arm.
Mine are the biggest parasites. I've got huge parasites.
We're riddles.
Yes, I'm riddles. Yes, we are.
That's what I mean by meaning in life. So, a conforming of oneself to reality in order to cultivate wisdom and meaning in life. And I think Plato does a great job at that.
I thought you said this place would be easy to find.
Now, this has three core components in it. The first is a conception of reality as leveled. And here's where we'll start to get into. What does that mean?
Its wealth lay in the earth,
Second, a conception of the psyche as leveled.
in precious gems hewn from rock, and in great seams of gold, running like rivers through stone.
And third, a conception of the dynamic interaction between the psyche and reality that affords meaning and wisdom.
I've no idea.
I'll return to all of these in depth soon, but I want to continue with introducing the traditions to you. So the first is the Platonic tradition from which a spirituality, as I've defined it, has been drawn.
I'm sorry, do I know you?
Well, you know my name.
The second is Aristotelian science.
Toss it and crush it. We'll use it forever.
So I hear you're starting Aristotle now, and we have to remember that Aristotelian science lasts 1,000 years.
Stay where you are.
That's worth noting. Okay, what did you do today? Okay, Aristotelian science, right? I mean, when you start any science, even in the modern era, right, you'll get introduced to Aristotle. I mean, imagine being at a party with Aristotle.
What has it got in its pockets?
I'm really interested in physics. Here, I wrote this book called The Physics. Oh, well, I'm really interested in the psyche. Here's the anima. I wrote it. I'm interested in how animal moves. Here's my book. Poetry. Here's my book. How to write books. Here's my book. Right, that's Aristotle, okay?
What has it got in its nasty little pockets?
So you don't want to be married to Aristotle. Okay, now Aristotelian science has three components to it that are central to Plotinus in his synoptic integration and creation of Neoplatonism. The first is a theory of causes.
Move back. Give him some air, for goodness sake.
And you may say, well, I know what cause is. No, you don't. You know the you know the Cartesian reduction of all causes to one type of cause. I want to bring back a notion of causation called formal cause that was very important to Plotinus. Second, a theory of knowing by conformity. I'm splitting it up like that because I don't want you to hear our current notion of conformity, which we usually regard as a negative thing. I want you to hear con, sharing, form, sharing the form. But form doesn't mean shape. It means structural functional organization. It means the formal cause.
I don't understand why it's not working.
So I'm going to explain in more detail what's knowing by conformity. And then the third is an attunement relation between the two.
It's not as if it's witchcraft.
So the way the world is structured and the way the psyche works, they attune and they can even become at one with each other.
I have never been so wrong in all my life.
The third tradition that is taken up by Neoplatonism is the Stoic tradition. Stoicism, if I had to summarize it, and I have in a couple places, but Stoicism is basically the philosophy. But there's a debate if it's a religion or a philosophy. It's a philosophy religion or a religious philosophy of internalizing Socrates. So the way you have internalized other people, you want to internalize Socrates.
The brain controls every human action, voluntary or involuntary, every breath, every heartbeat, every emotion. If the soul exists, it exists in the brain.
As a lyricist, I flip scripts way on some different